Thanks, Guy, for the introduction. Thanks, Alan, for facilitating this to be here. I'm very excited to be here. I have so many meetings that are virtual all around the world, and it's so nice, even if it's just 1 hour drive, to come here and see people in real life and to get real life feedback. It's really nice. Thank you. So I'm Christine Wardpage. Just a brief introduction to myself. I did my master's research at McMaster University in Hamilton, studying the impacts of pollution on coastal ecosystems. Then I did my PhD at Dalhousie with Ransom Myers. If any of you are familiar with him, he's famous for documenting the decline of cod populations and saying that cod was going to collapse. And he sort of famously left DFO because they were hushing him, so went to Dalhousie to go and speak about the research that he was finding. And I was one of his PhD students, and he had a whole lot of us working on analyzing the world's nature data, the pollution, turtles, fisheries, sharks, and rays. And he had us all analyzing data. And I used to joke that if he could, he would have doubled us up because inside this space, because he wanted to pack us in and just analyze these data to tell the world about what the state of the oceans was. And so after that, I went on to work in the US for the government, again, studying fisheries, and the Canadian government studying
Dr.
fisheries.
Christine.
So I was evaluating these time area closures. So these are areas where the scallop fishery is not allowed to fish in order to let cod spawn and make more babies. And so when after this was a huge project, 3 years to evaluate these time area closures that had been in place since 2006. And we found out very quickly that these had never been working to protect cod. And so I said, okay, we are all analyzing data. If we go into universities, we go into government, we go into research and consulting companies, we go into NGOs, we're all analyzing data, mapping and graphing and dealing with spreadsheets and managing data for one data set at a time and one question at a time. And I said, okay, well, we have to change this. This is very inefficient, and the world is changing much faster than we can keep pace to provide the insights to anyone to help make decisions. And so that is what has become eOceans. And I have a bat here. The word eOceans, it's a blue planet, so it really works anywhere for any species and any pollution or any organization. So, and we're based in Nova Scotia, so we're a homegrown software and expert team. Now, can I switch to another screen? Okay, so I guess I want to start this conversation with a little bit of hearing from you all. We started with some of the observations you've made, but I would love to know what some of the questions that you have as a society or outside of the society and the jobs that you have or other communities about, we already talked about the interest or the concern around habitat modification or destruction, creating species to move elsewhere. But is there anything else you're working on as a society or as a group or that you're interested in? I got a few of these from your own society or from our region, news articles where you have been discussing things, whether it's about moose or salmon or whitefish. These are issues that keep arising in our community. And so what is important here is that everything we're talking about that impacts nature and the impacts of society and vice versa are important. It's also highly dynamic. It has always been dynamic. It's always been complex, but it is more so today than it ever has been, with rapid expansion of developments and changes in highways and the housing crisis and developments there. And it's complex and it's very fast changing, not only because of climate change, but also because there's a growing number of people like Guy that are working on protection and conservation and policies and education, and groups like this coming together to better understand our ecosystems and to advocate for them. Is there anything that anyone wants to add here? Any stories or anecdotes of what things? Yep. Yeah. Offshore wind, yeah. Yes, offshore wind is a big thing in our community. What about tidal force energy that's in tides? Um, Barriers being removed or not removed for fisheries migration. Heat waves inside of fisheries. Go ahead, yeah. Bird strikes on windows. That's a very good, I just looked that up a few days ago. Um, and so then the question I have for you all is what's the status quo? So if you see these animal observations, are you currently logging them? Do they go into eBird or do they go into iNaturalist or are they just your observations that you share with your community?
Some of the protected area works, we upload all that to the Atlantic
Data stream?
data stream and to iNaturalist.
Okay, so how do you, and that's as a group you do that?
The people that are working in that area, when we
Okay.
go down to that area,
Okay.
Larry should answer this, but
Okay. So you collect the data you go out and you do surveys or do you
sometimes we've done surveys, sometimes it's, yeah.
opportunistic or surveys?
Yeah.
Okay, both. And then do you write them down and then you enter it into a spreadsheet and then upload it to data stream? Or do you take photographs and then just share them directly to iNaturalist?
There's, I think both.
Both. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I'm involved with Lepidoptera. We have monarch butterfly and also we do a butterfly. There are about three of us. In fact, I did this today. I'm writing an article, but I looked up on butterfly who saw monarchs and put it on butterfly, and essentially three of us did it, and all from BNS as far as I know.
Okay. So that's it. You're all here. Great. Just a side story. I had a lot of monarchs in our living room this summer. We had a broken branch that just like had a whole pile of monarchs that hatched and we released them. That was pretty exciting.
Did you put that up?
I didn't put anything up on iNaturalist. And so we can talk about that. That's the next step of the conversation here is so you put the data up and anyone can use it, correct? And so and then has anyone analyzed the data or are you counting on, especially in the protected areas, who is responsible for the next phase? One is data. Data sits there, but how does it move into and actionable insights like maps, graphs, reports to either work with the government to design protected areas or to push back on developments or anything like that? Or is anyone going through that next phase? Yeah.
When I became the president of the BNS, I did analyze all the Christmas bird data for Wolfville.
Okay.
And it's in the whatever we call, what was it called? The newsletter.
The newsletter, okay.
It's there.
Okay. Yeah. So the analysis, did you use Excel or R or GIS or what is your expertise to do that or your background to do that? Okay.
I'm too old to use R.
Okay.
So I think I can't quite remember. I think I
okay.
basically just graph the results.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Just a lot of the protected area work has been endangered species.
Great.
So they've been, for example, the species are in the number of sightings are in our proposal for the protected area, and Larry's done maps of what species have been found where. So there's been some basic analysis, but not we haven't done any fancy statistics.
Okay. But making maps is still pretty fancy. Like you have to use a GIS, it's time consuming and cleaning the data, importing it, cleaning it, making sure that it's good, and then mapping it takes time.
We've sent the data to DNR and a bunch of other places.
Okay, so that's the next step. Yeah. Okay, the data and the results, the analysis. Okay, and there was another hand back here. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not in the research community.
Okay.
And I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, great.
Maybe if you could back up a moment and just.
Okay.
2 sentences. What's iNaturalist?
Okay, so iNaturalist is an app that a lot of nature observers use to take a photo. So I'm glad you asked that. They take photos of the animals that they see or insects they see, and they upload it to a cloud for others to use. And it uses AI to identify the species and some other like experts to identify the species, and then it puts it on a map. and it makes all the data open access for others to use for various purposes. Really, you can use it for any purpose. Is that helpful? And then eBird is similar. So when you see eBird has been around much longer, and you'll see these massively amazing migratory bird maps as the birds are moving north and south. Yeah, I highly recommend checking out eBird. It's pretty fantastic to see the birds migrating based on citizen observations. But the point is, so I'm trying to establish that we collect data and then often it gets parked until somebody in this room. It's very hard to find scientists, data scientists like me, to hire, to bring in to analyze data in order to mobilize it to make decisions and to help communities enable decision makers to make smarter decisions that don't necessarily take out an endangered species or to put a protected area where it matters. It's on land or in the ocean. And so someone like me I worked for government, I worked for NGOs, industry, the fishing industry, analyzing their data for years and years, and to give them the insights that they need to make decisions. And so that's essentially what's going in all of these. Data is just the first beginning part. And then so much work has to happen after that in order to make those decisions. And so success of all these projects, success depends on answering a lot of complex questions, and that requires a lot of complexity in the data and the data analysis and reporting. So this is some of the common questions across the world. Doesn't matter if we're studying whitefish or salmon here and trying to, here, or offshore wind or sharks and rays in the Maldives. These are common questions. What is the management effectiveness? Are we effectively protecting these species and where they, the places that they feed, the places they mate, in the case of manta rays, where they're being cleaned? This is, and then from there, there's a whole series of other questions that we are asking all the time, repetitively around the world. And so, how do we get there? How do we answer these questions and make sure that our governments and our developers and our decision makers, as well as the investors into natural spaces, have the information that they need? And so this is what I was trying to make a point of before. So in data collection, if you look at the government's websites, if you look at researchers, there are phone hotlines. If you see a turtle, there's a phone hotline. If you see a jellyfish, there's a phone hotline. If there's a dead seal, there's a different phone hotline. For all these different species, there's different phone hotlines. And then there's different websites where you can email in your observations. And many are building custom apps, as well as sensors and other ways, eDNA, if you're familiar with that. And then you go through all these different data processing. And then we rely on things like social media to be able to communicate what we're seeing and the trends or the threats that we're seeing back to our communities. And so social media has become, although it had its heyday, I might suggest, it has become a place that is very challenging to spread information, fact-based information, because there is so much misinformation in there. And so this is essentially just a little table of the process of going through from all the different steps that we take in order to make a report, whether that's an environmental impact assessment report or a report to the community to be able to say, so if you collect data on a protected area and you send it to somebody like me to analyze it, I give you back this. And we have to go through all these different steps in order to get there. And it can take hundreds, if not thousands of hours to get there. And it's very expensive and it's very opaque. So do we trust? So when a consulting company does an assessment on our lakes, I live in Dartmouth, and they do an assessment on our lake to say, oh, is this development going to harm our lake? And then we say, oh, of course it is, but their report says it isn't. Where's the data? Where's the information? What did they use to describe that? And that's where I think that there's a lot of conflict between decision makers and communities and researchers. And so agencies rely on, how many people in here have a fishing license? Very few. Okay. So when you go fishing, for example, that can be a source of data about our lakes, our lake health, and the invasive species and the pollution or the health of the fisheries that are in the lakes. And so when you catch your fish, when you have a license, you're required to record what you caught and to send it in. But only 4% in Nova Scotia of people actually send in those reports, and they barely digitize it. They cannot keep up with how much, even that level of data, which means we know very little about our lakes. And we have a lot of lakes. So then citizen science is another way, like iNaturalist, like eBird. Then there's other apps and other things to collect invasive species, to collect pollution, to collect plastic pollution, and so on. And so all these different places to collect data and to send data makes it really hard to bring it together and to describe what's happening in our ecosystems. And so this is an example. This is one of my favorite examples because one, there's no author on it, so I don't know, I'm not pointing a finger at anybody. Two, it's made by our government. And it is Atlantic salmon. So we invest a lot of money, taxpayers' money, in the protection and conservation of Atlantic salmon. There is more studies that get done on Atlantic salmon than most other species, and a lot of conservation that goes into this species. And this is just Department of Fisheries and Oceans data, just the Inner Bay of Fundy from 2010 to 2015. That's the data period, published in 2021. So that's 6 years out of date. How can we possibly be effectively understanding and mapping and investing in our species when things are so out of date? Okay, so I'm not sure where we were. So how do we, as global citizens, but also as the organizations that we expect, like the governments and federal, provincial, municipal, the organizations that we rely on, the consulting organizations, the environmental impact organizations, and our not-for-profits that are doing this important work around the world to make these decisions about the natural ecosystems that we rely on. How do we maximize what we can do?
I just click that. Whoops, because I clicked that.
I think I'm there. I'm good.
You good? Okay.
So these are across the board. So I did an analysis of all the natural research projects around the world, and I found that these are the most common things that every single research project needs. They need to know location, and they need to know date and time. So similar to the iNaturalist people that have made observations, if you make an observation today, that is not going to be the same observation an hour from now or a day from now. And it's going to be different day after day after day. And the people who are there, the citizens that are stewards of their areas, they're the ones who see it the most often. Scientists like me, we come in for maybe a week or two a year, if that, and we'll do an assessment. And that's the information that's often feeding our policies and our decision making. And it's really just not enough. And so these are, so these are all the information that's needed to be able to describe and understand our natural world. And so eOceans was designed to understand and to pull together all those pieces of the data. That's why I showed a puzzle pieces there. And I have a flying squirrel and a whitefish and a monarch and some bats in those pictures to show that it's the same across the board. So eOceans is transforming nature and threat data. So it's not just the natural data, the biodiversity data. And it's also threats like pollution and social values into timely, credible intelligence to support effective conservation and management of our ecosystems and spaces around the world. So how does it work? This is maybe a little technical, but this is essentially you fill out a form and you fill out a form and you say, I'm interested in this lake or this river or this part of the forest, and you put a boundary around it. And that signifies to eOceans which coordinates on the surface of the earth that you as a project owner are interested in. And then you say which species that you're interested in. So if you're interested in monarchs in Nova Scotia, you put in monarch butterflies. Or if you're interested in salmon or whitefish, you put it in there, and then you run the project. Then it's essentially a live and updating project. And you just feed it data. And as you feed it data, it goes through all these analyses. So you'll see data can come in through uploading data. So if you said you had existing data, instead of asking somebody else to go and map and graph and do all that stuff, you just upload the data set and it will automatically turn it into maps and graphs and tables and reports, so that then you can go and have the conversations that you need. And so we also built an app that is that attaches to your project. So it looks at the location and it automatically sends it to the project. And it's quite a bit different than iNaturalist in that you own your data, the data is not open. So this protects species in special places from harvesters and so on that may use the data for purposes that you did not intend. And so that's yeah. And then you can download the data if you need, and you can share. The other important piece is that you can share your data with many different projects. So you can log once, and the data can go to, Nova Scotia wind farms, salmon, a whole bunch of different projects based on location, so if you had a bobcats in Nova Scotia project, the data could go to bobcats in Nova Scotia. You can have a bat in Mersey River, Tobiatic research station could have a bats project, and everyone who logs a bat could go send their bat data to that project, and without making it open and accessible to everyone. And so that's what that's showing here. And that makes it really efficient for invasive species tracking, endangered species tracking, and so on. So yeah, go ahead. How does somebody know you have this? Yeah.
Some else doing work that they, the Atlantic Salmon Federation,
Right.
know that you are doing this, that it's available to them.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's currently designed for it's designed so that you could go fishing, and if you saw a new project pop up, then you would join that project or request to join that project. They would look at you and they'd say, yep, and now your data would going forward. But it is all inside. So there is a social media aspect to it. So that's why I talked about the social media parts, is that there's a similar to a Facebook group, right? You join that Facebook group, instead you join this eOceans group, and now your data goes to that project. If that and
where to see all the projects that are out there.
Yeah, but we don't have very many yet. So we're really we're a very small team, and I'm the founder and CEO. And so we're just getting to that point where eventually, we want to have the federal government, the provincial government, municipal, the not-for-profits, the consulting, all of them have projects in there. It would be great to have more. We have the Maldives, we have California, we have South Africa, we have other places. I've started a few projects for Lake Banook. So Lake Banook and Maynard Lake are the lakes that I live on. And Lake Banook had an eel die off a couple years ago, and I believe that all the adult eels died in that lake, and none were seen the next year, and only one was seen this year, so alive. And it was connected to 10 other lakes, so we could not get the government to respond to us. So I created a project, and then I created a bunch of other sort of similar projects to just let's start tracking the health of Lake Banook in an ongoing way, because a lot of people my kids swim in it every day all summer long. They're in camp on that lake. And I thought, well, I want to have that information. So if something goes wrong with this lake, we can start to figure out what's wrong with it. So that's eventually, as we grow, there will be lots of projects. Thank you for that question, Guy. is not prescriptive. You can choose all species, you could choose none, no species. You could choose just to track plastic pollution, straws. Like there, we have over a billion variable option combinations to choose from currently. Somebody reached out to us 2 weeks ago from Ottawa asking us, this is totally, it took even me further beyond what I thought it could be used for. But somebody asked me because there's phone hotlines that if you see discarded needles from drug use, you call them, you phone a phone hotline, and then they come and clean them up because they don't want the public going and getting hurt by them, but they also want to clean it up. So it's a phone hotline. Instead, if you just used eOceans in this case, an app, and you log it, then they would have a daily heat map of where they were logged, and they could go clean them up based on that. So it's really like it's really modernizing. It's hard for me to describe what eOceans is, but it's really modernizing or reinventing the way we understand our world and make decisions and investments in how to protect it. It's wide range, not just species. Yes.
So just quick to
Yeah.
follow up on it. So basically, let's say if we're doing if we have we want a monarch project, the ultimately, if there were 5 monarch projects in Nova Scotia, as long as they publicly agreed, they would have to publicly agree to list them so that I, as an observer, could find them. Is that right?
Yeah, so they
I
can,
know that there's 5 in addition to mine.
that's right. So, yes. The question was, can we put in multiple projects, say on a monarch, and you could have one, the Blomidon Society could have one, Tobiatic Research Center could have one, the government, there could be a global monarch project too. And you log once, you've joined 5 different monarch projects. And when you log your monarch once, it goes to all 5 of those projects based on your location and the interest of each of those projects. So it's very smart. It looks at your location, it looks at the variable that you've logged and who to share it with based on that information. So it's not just making things open. Everything is much more purpose driven for a project or a specific. It could be more just open of tracking biodiversity in Nova Scotia, tracking endangered species in Nova Scotia. It really depends. Yes. So back to this table that I showed earlier. So eOceans puts it all in one place. So as you add data, it goes through all of those steps and keeps everything up to date so that we don't have, is my next, that salmon report being out of, 6 years out of date is up to date, including today. And so you're just sharing it in an interactive way. Yes.
Is there a quality control issue on this, just with folks sending in information all the time?
Oh, yeah.
How do you deal with it?
So that is on a project by project basis. So the way we have quality controls set up. So our team in the Maldives, for example, they're logging marine megafauna like sharks and rays and turtles and whales. And but they're all trained for those species. But I still find ones that I'm like, ooh, something's off. You've got the wrong species. And because they'll upload a picture or that species doesn't belong there. So for example, they logged a lemon shark, and that lemon shark doesn't exist in the Maldives. It exists in the Caribbean. So it's a sickle fin lemon shark. And so you're able to correct it that way. We've built in quite a few different tools to clear it, to validate data and then the more people that validate it, so imagine more people that validate that observation, the more weight it has in the results. So eventually at the other end, you can turn off, if it needed to go to legal, like if there was a lawsuit on a project, you could say, remove all observations that have not been validated and look at the trends. So that way you're always dealing with it. Yeah, it depends on the project though. So a citizen science project on plastic pollution of bottles, you probably don't need to do too much. Everyone knows what a bottle is. But when you're talking about manta rays that are the reef manta ray versus the oceanic manta ray versus, I think there's a third now, or more, who knows what's to come. I can't even identify those. So then in terms of Guy's projects, he will only want people, if he's trying to track only those, he only wants the people that are well qualified in those species identifications to join his project. My project, if you see a manta ray, that's fine.
I was thinking more of the citizen scientists. You know,
Yeah,
Hey, I saw this neat species.
yeah,
Well, maybe it's not neat. I thought it was
Exactly.
neat because I got it wrong.
that's right.
And I don't know how that ever gets picked up or how that would get
Yeah.
picked up. And so maybe there's an AI application.
Yeah, and that is what the purpose of iNaturalist is for. So you take a picture and it does that. But most of the world's observations that you make are mostly zeros. So if I go to the ocean, to the coastline today, and I say, oh, what species do I see right now? It's going to be a zero. And so iNaturalist, you can't do that. You don't report zeros, right? You only, so importantly, when I'm trying to track trends through time and through space, I need those zeros in order to say what's a seasonal fluctuation, what's the effort, what's the sampling methodology. So eOceans is much more for once you have trained, you're following sampling methodologies, and you want credible, legally defensible data, that's when we come into play. iNaturalist is great for helping you identify species for sure. But if you are somebody who's a salmon fisher, you already know salmon, you're not going to take a picture every time. So you actually can log in the oceans without a photo. You just log a salmon, 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 and then you can have that much more data. So it's further along the credibility not to say that it's not when it's iNaturalist, but
So is it more the gatekeeper who owns the project, who chooses that into the project,
yes,
is the one who's kind of deciding?
that's right. Yeah. So Guy, like I said, Guy might have 10 different projects around the world, all on manta rays, only people who are well trained in those species. But he may also have a global one that anyone can join to make it more fun and engaging and to raise more donations and stuff like that. So then they all can join and they might report a manta ray, but they might accidentally report an oceanic sunfish, or they might accidentally report other things. Yeah.
And then would it be his responsibility to be the sort of checker person, like on that kind of?
Currently him and or his team. So you have a team and everyone joining that team can help QA QC the data that's coming in. So we often, like, we have a project in California where everyone's sort of collaborating. Oh, you missed, they'll take a picture, somebody will be excited and they've got a drone that's going overhead and they'll take a picture of a whale, going through, and they'll log the whale, but they forget to log the bait fish that the whale was chasing after. And so, oh, you missed the bait fish. And it's very easy to overlook something, or the bunch of surfers or sailors or something, or plastic pollution. So having the photo helps you to look, oh yeah, so I do that every morning. It's manual, but I quite love it. And I can show you if there's time, which we are running out of. Let me go faster. So the point being, everything runs faster and smoother for science, and we are quantitative ecologists made here in Nova Scotia. So when we talk about made in Canada, we are made in Canada. We are your Excel, GIS, iNaturalist, and all your meta platform alternative. And so that's what we're really trying to spread the word here and across Canada, that if you're doing it with all those US based software, we're here as a potential alternative to those. Okay, so this is just you've got a mobile app where the data is collecting, people are collecting data in the field, and then it comes into this, and this is what we envision as the global biodiversity and ocean ledger. So you'll be able to track all the North Atlantic right whales, the orcas, everything's being tracked in one spot, all the different projects together, stitching together to be able to say, let's recover North Atlantic right whales. Everyone's working together, set a goal, and everyone's working towards that same goal. And so that's the goal of this. I don't know if I can.
You should go for it.
Okay. And then at a project scale, we'll see here. I will just zoom in quickly here. Maybe I can show you. I'll show you a project here. This is the one I should show, come back. Hold on one second. I should show the one in Maldives for Guy. And this is a project that I'm not part of, but this is the one in the Maldives. So I'll take you somewhere nice and hot and sunny currently. And so this is what the dashboard looks like. So you'll see your project. your organization's logo and project name. And then these are all the different parts of a scientific paper or report. So the goal is that scientific papers and reports are now live and updating and interactive. So when somebody gives us a community a report, we can click on it and see what data we have and what's feeding into it and what the gaps are. So this is the location. Nice. That's the spot on the Earth. And then we've got observations. This team doesn't report a lot of photographs, so I will quickly jump over to the California one, if I can, but they make a lot of observations, but without photos. So it's not as interesting as I hoped. Let me come over here. Hold on, because it's more fun. Here, results. So here, you can see here, there's a map of all their observations. You can see in this one, if I was a scientist saying or a policymaker or a legal person, I would look at this and say, this is all their sampling effort on all their sites. They visit a few sites a lot, but they don't visit the other ones. So I look at that and I say, okay, well, you have to fill that other thing in those other sites. You have to put effort in those other sites in order to better understand that ecosystem. And then there's a maps, and you can click over here, and there's heat maps. So to make heat maps, that shows hotspots of activity and your tables and so on, and graphs. Everything you need to know about your ecosystem, your species, the threats, and so on are all shown in these results. And you can click on them, and they're interactive, and they show trends through space and through time of not only the species, but also the threats. I'll come back over here. So this way, if you have a protected area, you know what value that protected area is bringing to your community. It's bringing value to all of these people and these activities. I'm not super good on Alan's computer, but these, and then there's threats, which I have to move over there to get. And then these are the threats that are impacting that ecosystem right there. And so you can see those, again, trends through space and through time. So it's very comprehensive. And I'm just going to show you very quickly if it's still open. Can we do that, Alan?
Go back to the.
Oh, did it work? Oh, you have to share the
You
screen.
can do that.
Yep.
Just basically.
Okay. So I can talk while he's
Yeah.
sharing the screen. This is the mobile app. So you log observations. Ooh.
Just a second, I'm. No.
Are there any questions at this point? I know I'm.
There you go.
Okay, great. So
Are
this
you
is-
done with this? Excuse me. Are you done with this show?
Yeah, I'm done with the
Could I
show.
close it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So this is the mobile app. It's mostly ocean focused. You'll see I do log my dead birds, and those do not go to any project currently, but I'm testing it because I think it's important to log dead birds, and eBird does not do dead birds. And with avian flu and window strikes and all these other things, I think having those dead birds is super important. So if you do follow me, there's following features like social media. We don't do any AI in it, and we don't allow dialogue in the public space. There's only dialogue is allowed inside of projects to keep it safe space for everybody. So you can but that's about it. And then follow. So here, this is in California. I'm not oh, I have to use the phone. Hold on. Here, so you can see these are the photos. I love waking up in the morning and seeing the California project. It's pretty amazing, the biodiversity and the things that they see. They also post garbage, and yeah, and so then you can see all those photos. Looks like a Garibaldi caught in a trap, maybe. And then you can see that all across here. So this is where, if I hold that, I can say, love it, validate it, or something's off. So that's part of the validation part that we were talking about. So I will review all the different things that were reported, all the species and the threats, and then I will validate it. And you can click on one of those projects that observation went to, and you can see it here. It's the same thing as in the dashboard, is also in the app. And here, this is where it's exciting. So this is all the information that's in the dashboard, also the photos of but the observations are the exciting part. You can click on any one of those and maybe it will come. Maybe it's just a little too slow. Yeah. So you can see here and see those different observations, and the results are also in this. So it's make sure that when you are participating in projects, you always can see what is happening in those. There's no black boxes, there's no silos, and there's no slowness. So all the information about that. This is a protected area in California, so you know what species and who's getting value from it, and so on. And then there's even some little gamification I'll show you. One. So then there's your profile. So I'm clicking on my profile right now. I don't know if it's a bit slow. In your profile, you will see all of your data. And then as we're really nerdy biologists. And so when you start off as a starfish. And as you provide better data and your data gets validated, you work your way up to an orca. So you work your way up 10 layers. There we go. So I'm an orca. I hope that someday somebody's going to replace me. And so these are my observations. And you can follow me if you download the app. You can follow me. And so there's a dead bird that I reported. I don't know. It's just a little slow here. I log ice thickness, who's using our lakes. So there's a little dead bird that we saw. I think it's a goldfinch. Is that? No? I don't know what it is. My daughter found it and it's like this big. She carried it all the way home. But you can see there that did not go to any teams. So there's no teams that cover that area. Oh, I'm back. Anyway, so that's just a mini tour. If you want to log, that is under the plus button, and you log species, humans, the environment, and then your activity. So if you're walking, you just choose that. You can choose from a big long list of a whole bunch of different sampling methodologies, and your field notes, and then you can showcase. So showcase on means that if you're following me and I showcase my observation, you'll get a notification that I showcase something so you can see it and interact with it. If I showcase off, that means you don't get a notification. And then save. I think that's it for now. I think the request for everyone in this room is if you know somebody who is actively doing projects through any of the universities, through any of the NGOs or consulting or our government, is to start to advocate for transparent and accountable research that you can actually interact with and build trust with. And so that's it. Thank you.